What's up, folks? Got another episode of the podcast or videocast here if you are watching this on YouTube. We are very lucky today. One of the topics that I'm very passionate about, as you all know, is getting people involved with programming and development, and especially those who've never done it and younger generations and getting them started. I've got Mia Kotalik with me today, and she's going to be talking to us about some of these subjects. Mia, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. So my name is Mia. I've been coding since I was probably 8 years old, and I started taking clients for freelance web development in 2014 while I was still in high school, and I continued doing that through high school and college. And then after studying computer science and biology in college, I have just started transitioning from freelance on, Upwork and those kinds of places to my own web development company called Curie Co.
Fantastic. And we will put links in the show notes for everything here. So the first question I have to ask, because of the varied background here, and I love that folks get engaged at a young age. What was that spark that made you get interested in sort of the technology field?
Sure. I was actually really reluctant to get into coding at first. Both my parents were programmers, and I was like a really stubborn child. So I definitely didn't want anything to do with technology because I didn't want to go in the family footsteps. I wanted to do my own thing. I was actually really interested in becoming a doctor, studying medicine, but I wanted a computer. All my friends had computers, and my dad said that he would buy me a computer if I learned Python. So he got me like a huge, big Python programming book, and basically said, if you can get through the exercises, I'll buy you a computer. So I was using like my mom's computer or something like that to go through the exercises. And I went through the whole book in like, I don't know, maybe 3 days. I raced through it all day long because I just really wanted that computer. And the whole time I was thinking, oh, I hate programming. I hate this. I'm not going to be a programmer. But then I got halfway through the book and I realized I loved it. So that was basically kind of the introduction to everything for me.
Nice. So I got to ask, what was the first computer?
It was a Dell Mini. It wasn't
Okay.
actually, my dad didn't actually buy it new. It was his old computer, but he said he'd give it to me. And he was using it for work, and it was like a really tiny Dell Mini computer. Um, that was my first one.
Nice. And I guess you went through that period that we all experience when you write some lines of code and you're like, well, I'm not really sure what this is. And then you do it and you get that output on the screen and you're like, wait, I did it and it worked, right? And it kind of got that excitement. And I guess for you, it was a case of it just kept going and here you are now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I know exactly what you mean. And you're like, okay, if I got to do this to get that, that's how this is going to work. And the next thing, it's like, oh, I have a career in this now, right?
Yeah.
So I got to ask, were the parents, were they supportive, or was it like what happened to the medical thing? Right?
Well, actually, it was kind of interesting. So I did a lot of Python on the side. Kept it as like a fun hobby of mine, but I still was pretty set on not going into software.
Okay.
I wanted to be a doctor. And it wasn't until almost basically senior year of high school that I realized that those could go hand in hand. I was at the U of A, and the University of Arizona is the college near where I lived in Tucson. And one of the professors at a bioinformatics lab in Tucson caught her attention that I knew Python. And so she asked me if I wanted to work in her lab during the summer. And I started working there, and that's when I learned that there is this huge intersection of technology and medicine, and that if I wanted to do research, if I wanted to study medicine, I didn't even have to go to medical school. I could just study biology and be a programmer. So that was the first time that I realized that I actually might go into technology as a career. Even before then, I was still being stubborn, saying I'm not going to go into software. I want to go to medical school. So yeah, that was what really opened my eyes, was seeing that it was just technology can apply to anything and you can do anything you want with it.
Yeah, and it's interesting, right? Because now, these days, we can't escape it. It's everywhere in everything. Um, that sort of brings me to the next question, which is, for those who are looking to get into this, and they say they're looking to do programming of any kind. I get this quite a lot when I'm doing my live streams, and that people will come by and they'll say, hey, I want to do this. I want to make a mobile application. I want to make a website, whatever it may be. How do I do that? And that's always a difficult question, because the answer is there are so many different ways. What do you think are some of the best ways for folks who are looking, especially for things like web development now, where you have so many options?
Yeah. So I think the best way to do it is by project. I mean, there's tons of books out there that I feel like serve more of as a really good reference for when you already know how to do something and you're finding an error and you want to come back and look at, like a description of a function or something like that. And I see people trying to use those kinds of books to get into programming. And for me, that never really worked, because I would just get bored of reading about definitions and functions. And still, when I learn new things, I always find it best to just jump headfirst into a project. And it might be frustrating at sometimes, but the kind of satisfaction of when something gets to work is really what keeps you coming back for more. So I would say if you're starting to learn a programming language, even if you've never done anything before, would be to start and find a project-based tutorial. Or even if you're like learning Python, one of a really good book that I used when I was younger was called Learn Python the Hard Way. And it's got a scary name, but it's basically like little projects that teach you a different aspect of the language in each project. And you can even go back to your programs to reference them later, because it's a lot of like really great design patterns. So you're kind of building up your own reference for yourself to use all through projects. And for me, that was always more helpful than something like a reference book, or even like on, Khan Academy and like Code Academy, those kinds of things. There's really great project-based stuff there, but some of the intro stuff is more, syntax-based, and that kind of lost me pretty fast. So I would really recommend diving into a project.
I agree with you. I know for me, that's the way that I pick up new topics, new languages, whatever it may be, the quickest. I tried going that, for years. I would do that. You get the book, back when paperback versions of the books were a thing, and from cover to cover. And like you say, it was covering a lot of things that I, at the time, thought to myself, I'm sure this is useful. I'm sure later on I'm going to wish I knew this. And yes, it did turn out that way. But I also found that it became, I don't want to say boring. It's almost like, this is great, but do I really need to know the name of every function in a framework or a language? And that's when I realized is that the best way I learn is I have an idea for something, want to make it, now break that down into problems and go learn about those problems. So I agree with you. I think, taking that project approach not only teaches you the things you need to know at that time, but that reward mechanism is a lot quicker too. I think more than ever these days, the answer is because you can go search or even use chat or whatever AI these days and find that answer. You don't have to know it immediately like maybe you did back before we had some of these amazing tools, right? So with that in mind, if especially for younger generations who tend to be more adept at taking in that information, being like a sponge, right? But for us older folks like me, it's like I got to do this a few times. But what do you think are some good resources and good approaches, especially for that younger generation who want to dive into this?
Yeah, sure. So there's a book series called like Tiny Blank projects, and then the blank would be like the different languages. So like tiny Python projects, tiny Rust projects. And it's basically what I was describing, where it's like the little project-based stuff. And it's written in a really accessible way, and it does where it goes through your own projects of building up kind of the documentation knowledge for yourself. So yeah, I would really recommend that. And also, I mean, kind of talking about Code Academy and Khan Academy earlier as far as coding, as like how I don't super love it. It is a good resource for some people, and people who like the video interaction or like not having to set anything up on your computer, which I know is always a hassle. So it is good for some things, and they do have project-based stuff on there. So I would recommend the project-based side of it rather than the syntax side. But sometimes you do have to go back and learn the syntax. It's just part of it.
Yeah, I think what I say to folks is the part when knowing that syntax a little more in depth and some of these ways is when you go to that next level, right? And maybe
Mhm.
you feel like, okay, um, I can make projects for myself. Maybe you've done some open source, some things like that, and you're looking at it and saying, you're going into that workplace and you want to go work for one of those big companies. I think, based on sort of discussions I've had with folks on other episodes, that's when a lot of that comes into play, because you're going to have those technical interviews where they will care about those things a lot
Mhm.
more than, say, an independent developer, or like you say, like yourself, someone who has their own company, where it's all about the solution and not necessarily the science behind it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And another really good resource that I just thought of is it's
Okay.
called the Flask mega tutorial, and that was actually the
Okay.
first kind of web-based thing I did. But yeah, that was a really good resource for me because I did a lot of Python, and it's Flask, so it's Python based, and it also combines web technology in there, and it's just a really good tutorial that starts from scratch.
Do you recommend to folks, um, and I should ask you which way you do this. Are you one of those people who you prefer to have your tools locally and do it there, or do you think, uh, you know, there are so many options now online where literally that's your IDE, that's everything, right? And like you say, it's even got the training built in as well. So you can literally sit down at any machine and do it that way, as opposed to having a local tool set. Do you have any thoughts on that?
So my preference is definitely local, just because that's the way I learned everything. But I would say whatever is gonna be most motivating to you and get you to do it is what you should use. Whatever works for you. If setting up locally is a big barrier, you don't have access to your own machine all the time, you're at school, something like that, then doing those online versions is definitely great. GitHub added their own kind of thing. I forgot the name of it, but I was just like classroom or something like that. But they basically
Oh,
have their
yeah.
own whole integrated IDE set up on there. And, that's a really great resource. It makes things a lot more accessible for people, and I think that's great. Personally, I like kind of the local setup. Um, I definitely think it's also great to use the online setup.
Yeah, and for myself, um, I use the local because same for me. That's what I'm used to. It's all right there, and I have tried to do it online. I just can't break those old habits. Okay, cool. Um, and along with this, and we touched on this earlier, what are some ways do you think, having gone through this and experienced it yourself, that if a parent's listening, um, we were talking before recording, and I know some folks who are working on some things with their kids, which I think is fantastic. So, what are ways do you think for parents to recognize and get involved and help motivate kids to stay on, if this is what they want to do, to stay on track?
Yeah, sure. I know a big thing for me, and I guess this totally depends on how of a stubborn of a kid you have, but a big thing for me was that it was like a really amazing sense of kind of power and autonomy. As like a kid, you have to listen to what your parents say. You don't have a lot of say over things. But when I was
Hmm.
programming, I basically could do anything I wanted, um, make whatever program I wanted, had full control of the computer. So that was a really big selling point for me. And if you find a way to communicate that to your kid, I think it really empowers them to feel like they have a lot of creativity, and can think up a lot of things on their own. Because there's like a lot of barriers to some projects when you're a kid. Like, oh, you have to go to the store, you have to buy supplies, you have to do all this
Uh-huh.
stuff. But it's like if you're sitting there with Python, you can do anything. And you don't really have to go out and buy stuff. It's open source, it's a free programming language, and you can build a whole application if you want to.
You mentioned that you've got your own business now, doing the web development, and unfortunately, it's still a thing where I don't think there is as much female representation in the industry as there should be.
Yeah, sure. So my mom was a programmer, so I've always had that representation for me in my life, which I'm
Great,
really
great.
grateful for. But I mean, I've definitely met other people who didn't have that kind of representation, and there's a lot of like differences. And you know, if you always weren't sure where if you could see yourself in the industry, it'll affect your confidence and stuff like that. So I think it's really important to um, have representation out there. And for me, I try, give back to the women in STEM community, do workshops, stuff like that, be the representation, and encourage others to do the same thing. But I think it's becoming more and more rare to have that kind of mindset, which is really great. But I mean, you can definitely see the difference representation makes, and so I think it's important to close that gap.
Yeah, I do too. I think I say sometimes you look at it and you go, we're in 2023. There shouldn't even be a gap anymore. It's always nice to see folks getting involved and making resources available, and also making themselves available. Like I said, I'm a big one for mentoring folks. If they want it, yes, absolutely. Pass it on to the next generation as well, and going forward with that. Something I want to ask about, because I see all this in the questions, and I'm real curious. What was your strangest job interview?
Mm-hmm.
And
Sure. So definitely one of them. This was during COVID, so it was a virtual interview, and it ended
okay,
up lasting almost 5 hours. This was mostly my
ooh,
fault for kind of just being a pushover, I guess, and letting it last this long. I mean, at this point, I'm glad I did it because it was a good experience and just like a really weird interview. Um, but there was basically a part of the interview where the guy asked me if I had any recommendations for somebody else to take the job, if I had any friends or anyone that I met that I would think would be a good match. And I thought that was
okay,
kind of a weird question because I was
yeah,
interviewing for the job. But I
right.
played along with it. I played along with it and I gave him a name of somebody in one of my classes. And they asked me, like, oh, like, why would they be a good fit for the job? What experience do they have? So I just said a couple things to go along with it. And then they were like, okay, well, they sound pretty good. So why should I hire you over them? And I was like, okay. And then they were like, this is a sales exercise. I want to see how well you can sell yourself. So this was like my
Oh,
whole exercise. And so then I like played along with it, continued going through it. And then he proceeded to say, stop right there. Okay, we're going to start over. And then he went and told me everything I did wrong in the sales pitch of myself
oh,
because he
no.
was a salesman, not like in technology or anything like that. So he was
Okay.
analyzing my pitch in a
Hmm.
sales set, telling me about different like sales tactics, which was like a lot of psychological stuff. It was basically just all very weird for a tech interview. I didn't want a sales position. But yeah, after that, I started to, you know, not really want the position anymore. Um, but yeah, that was a very long interview. It lasted a long time, lots of weird psychological experiments. Um,
Yeah.
didn't want the job after that. I got offered the job, but I said no. um, but yeah, very, very weird interview.
That that is one of the strangest stories I've heard for sure. Um, and even more so because of the I guess the outcome, right? And I get it. You go through all this, and at the end of it, you're probably thinking like, well, I hope I never have to speak with these people again.
Yeah.
Then they offer you the job, and you're like, I guess on the one hand, you're probably thinking, I guess I did a lot better than I thought I did. But I guess if it was me, I'd be thinking, hang on a minute. If that was the interview, I'm not sure I'd want to work with these people on a daily basis. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So long was because I kept thinking like, oh, it's gonna be over now. I'm just gonna get out of this. Like I'm just gonna end it, say I don't want the job and it'll be done.
Hmm.
But it just kept going, phase
Yeah.
after phase
Keep
of these
going.
weird psychological tests, and it was the weirdest thing. But yeah, anyway.
It becomes a punishment, right? It's like, well, I survived that one. They're going to try again.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's weird. Is there anything we didn't cover here that you want to talk about?
I guess I'll talk about just I recently started doing a compilation podcast of all of the things that I've had clients that have come up a lot with clients, just like while they're making websites and social media, just like online presence stuff. So I've been taking the frequently asked questions or mistakes that I've seen people made and putting them into a podcast, kind of give advice and help empower other small businesses. So it's called Technically a Podcast. There's 3 episodes out. The last one is on ChatGPT and how to use that for your small business. And I'm releasing new episodes on Mondays.
Okay, great. And we'll put a link in the show notes. And I'm glad you mentioned this because I saw the podcast mentioned and I meant to follow up and ask you. So yeah, give folks the name of the podcast again.
Technically a Podcast.
Great. Thank you. I'm going to check that out because I love podcasts, as you can probably tell. So folks, go check that out. We will put a link in the show notes for that. So thank you for putting that out there because I know some folks are a little cautious about talking about these things because they think, oh, if I mention this, the client's going to know that I'm talking about them. Right? And I think it's sometimes we forget that because we live so close to this, that they may not even think twice about it. So, okay, great. Yeah, we will put links in the show notes for that. Thank you.
I would just say that, honestly, so many people, it's very common to make very similar mistakes. If I'm talking about a common mistake, I would say to any of my clients, I'm not calling you out. Everybody does it. And it's not, I'm not shaming them for it. I'm trying to help people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say that.
Yeah, no, and that's great. Thank you. Because that's the other thing too. And I think that goes back to thinking about things like podcasts and appearances, like on this podcast, as representing yourself as the brand, right? And your company as well. So I think that's really smart and puts you in a good light, but you also are capable of saying what you want to say without offending anybody, right? Which I think is important too. Thank you so much, Mia, for being with us today. I appreciate it. And this has been a great conversation. And I hope folks take on board, the discussion here and the advice that you've given as far as getting started. And if they want to get started, how to get into it as well. And please, again, tell folks where they can find you and reach out to you if they want to talk to you or, of course, take advantage of your services. Please tell folks where they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So my personal website is miakotalik.com, and then curieand.co would be my company's website. So that's me, and I partnered with a software engineer, so we both work at the company. It's not just me. But those are the 2 main places you can find me. On Instagram, at Curie Co, and then my personal would be hello, it's mia.tech.
Great. Thank you so much. And folks, we will put links for all of these in the show notes to make it super easy for you to find them. And yep, go follow and go check it out. All right. Well, thank you so much again. Folks, that's what we got for you here. If this has been useful, you know what to do. Right? Share this with folks. Go tell them about it. Let's get out there and make some awesome things.